We hear about fraud all the time, but have you ever heard of a web of fraud spanning multiple countries and lasting over a decade? A scandal so massive that it still makes the largest financial institutions tremble. Today, in our very first video on this channel, I will tell you the dramatic story of how billions of dollars disappeared in Malaysia. It all started in 2009. Najib Razak, Malaysia's Prime Minister at the time, had a grand vision. He wanted to create a sovereign wealth fund that would usher Malaysia into a new era of prosperity. The vision led to the birth of One MDB, One Malaysia Development Berhad. The ultimate goal of this fund was to drive economic development and alleviate poverty. With an initial fund derived from government grants, loans and the sale of bonds, One MDB was tipped as the one thing that would eventually liberate Malaysia from its economic problems. However, right from its inception, the fund, which was originally known as Terengganu Investment Authority before rebranding to One MDB, was already entangled in questionable investments and transactions. One of the first red flags was its joint venture with Petrosaudi International, where large sums of money mysteriously flowed into unrelated accounts. But this was only the beginning, as more than $4.5 billion would eventually be siphoned off through a complex web of international money laundering and fraud. As the scandal unfolded, it exposed a network of shady dealings reaching the highest levels of government and finance, implicating figures like Joe Low and Najib Razak. The economic fallout was devastating, saddling Malaysia with over $12 billion in debt and tarnishing the nation's reputation on the global stage. But little did the public know, these were only the first ripples of a storm that would engulf the nation's highest offices. Joe Low was a financier who loved everything flashy. Low knew his ways around the murky waters of international finance. Alongside a cadre of high-profile accomplices, including Najib Razak, Low created a team that would become the masterminds behind an elaborate scheme to siphon off billions from One MDB. Their methods were as sophisticated as they were audacious. Under their control was a network of shell companies' offshore accounts and complex financial transactions that spanned across the globe. This network of deceit wasn't just about stealing money, it was about creating an illusion of legitimacy that allowed the theft to continue undetected for years. The scale of their loot was staggering. Money meant to build schools, hospitals and infrastructure for Malaysia's future generations was diverted to fund lavish parties, private jets, mega yachts and even Hollywood films. The sheer audacity of their spending knew no bounds. Joe Low, in particular, became synonymous with luxury, rubbing shoulders with celebrities and throwing parties that would make Gatsby blush. But behind the champagne and glitterati was a trail of betrayal that led straight back to the Malaysian people. The One MDB scandal wasn't just a Malaysian affair, it reached far beyond Malaysia's borders, drawing in authorities from around the globe, from the United States and Switzerland to Singapore and the Seychelles. Each country played a role in how billions were laundered through the world's financial systems, concealing their origins and funding the lavish lifestyles of those involved. In the United States, the Department of Justice, DOJ, launched one of the largest kleptocracy investigations in history. They traced over $4.5 billion that had been stolen from One MDB, which was used to acquire assets, including luxury real estate in Beverly Hills, artworks by Picasso, and even financing the Hollywood film The Wolf of Wall Street. The irony of using stolen funds to finance a movie about financial fraud was not lost on the public. Swiss and Singaporean authorities cracked down on banks within their jurisdictions, levying hefty fines and closing institutions found complicit in moving illicit funds. The global manhunt for Joe Low turned into something similar to a plot from a spy novel, with rumours of his whereabouts popping up in exotic locales, only for him to vanish once again into the shadows. Despite the international intrigue, the focus remained on the staggering amount of money stolen and the collective effort to recover these assets. The DOJ's efforts led to the seizure and repatriation of over $1 billion worth of assets back to Malaysia. As the investigations deepened, the role of Goldman Sachs came under scrutiny. The banking giant was accused of facilitating the 1MDB bond sales that allowed the fund's architects to siphon off huge sums of money. After intense legal battles, Goldman Sachs agreed to a settlement of nearly $3 billion, acknowledging its role in the scandal. Once untouchable as Malaysia's Prime Minister, Najib Razak found himself in the dock, facing multiple charges of corruption, abuse of power and money laundering. In a landmark trial, he was found guilty and sentenced to years in prison, a fall from grace that was both stunning and symbolic of the wider fight against corruption. Joe Low, however, has remained elusive till this day, a ghost slipping through the grasp of the international legal system. His exact location remains a mystery, despite being charged in absentia and subject to an Interpol red notice. The quest to find Joe Low continues to be a high-stakes game of cat and mouse, with Malaysian and international authorities vowing to bring him to justice. Repatriating stolen funds has been a complex process, with legal and diplomatic challenges at every turn. Yet the success stories, such as the return of over $1 billion from the United States, offer hope to the Malaysian people. As Malaysia and the world move forward from the 1MDB scandal, it might seem like the story has been fully told. However, new developments continue to emerge. In fact, as recently as September 2024, Malaysia's High Court heard that a staggering $2.4 million had been funneled from One Malaysia Development, 1MDB, into the bank accounts of celebrity Kim Kardashian and musician Pharrell Williams through Joe Low's shell company, Good Star Limited. So this is far from the end.